Everyone is here except for Chair Patina. So so I will go ahead and call roll now. Director Tiedemann?
Here.
Director Kick?
Here.
Director Hernandez?
Here.
Vice Chair Harrison?
Here.
Chair Patino? Chair Patino is not here. So we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. I didn't realize I'd be running this meeting as I was expecting the chair to be here. So you're going to have to help me run this,
Sure.
Adrian. So
Sure. Yes.
we don't have minutes from an earlier meeting, do we, to approve?
We do have minutes.
Okay, great.
They are in our on the website. I could bring them up if you would like to approve the minutes.
I think we should do that next. Thanks.
Okay, great. I will go ahead. Should I put the minutes on the screen, or how would you just?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it.
Okay, great. Hold on one second.
Does anyone else have any comments on these minutes or had an opportunity to read them?
No, I will go ahead and approve the minutes for November 5th, 2020. I was at that meeting.
So that's a motion. Great. Do I have a second? Was anyone else at the meeting at that time? Because
I don't
Aaron
believe
and
that
I are both
anybody
new.
from this group was on the meeting. We have some new members.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and second that, even though I wasn't there, just for purposes of having this move forward.
Okay.
We have a lot of new people, but let's take a quick look at this. Are any of these, Adrian or Howard, or any of these issues that are still ongoing that we should? Are these all things that got concluded, or are they things that we're still working on?
These are more general updates. So
Okay.
I don't believe there was any action items taken from that meeting. So
Okay.
yeah, I think
Okay.
it's perfectly fine to just approve them because there's nothing there.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. You want to call the roll on that, Adrian? Unless people
Yeah.
have comments. Does anyone have any comments? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead. Anyone else have comments on the minutes? Okay, hearing none. I guess we can call the roll. Thank you.
Great. Director Tiedemann?
Yes.
Director Kick?
Yeah.
Director Hernandez?
Yes.
Director Harrison?
Yes.
Chair Patina? The minutes pass.
All right. Okay, let's go to the next item. And I'm assuming Howard will be presenting this to us.
No, we're gonna pass this on to, I believe, Melissa or Annie. Which one's first on the docket? Is it Melissa?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Hello, Melissa.
Hi. Yep, so I think Adrian's pulling up the slides for the regulatory update. And we decided to do a regulatory update this meeting so that we could give you an overview of several of the key regulatory cases that we are involved in. Of course, we're involved in a lot more than what will be presented here today, but it's some of our most important cases. So I think it's particularly relevant, and decided not to do a legislative update this month given the board meeting presentation we did, and we don't really have much to update since that last board meeting. So next slide, please, Adrian.
Hey, Melissa, one comment I just want to make real quick is the approach that we took, since many of the members here are new to the Marketing and Regulatory Ledge Subcommittee, was to try to do a little bit more baseline setting for both from the policy perspective, but also in the marketing update that you'll receive after this one. There will be more in-depth deep dives that will be given in the monthly board retreats that will, of course, spend more time on some of these topics and, of course, others. Going forward, of course, in the subcommittee meetings, we can look to direction from members as to what specific topics you may want to cover, and staff, of course, can propose some other items as well that will be a little bit more sort of ad hoc based, whereas this time was meant to be more as like, let's broadly cover sort of what is going on right now, so as to bring you all up to speed.
Okay. Thank you.
So to start, just to give you an overview, our public policy team at EBCE is actively engaged in over 30 regulatory proceedings. Most of our proceedings are at the California Public Utilities Commission, but we also engage as needed at the CAISO, California Independent System Operator, at the California Energy Commission, and also at the California Air Resources Board. We've kind of divided up our cases into kind of 5 key areas, and it certainly helps me keep track of them. So I thought I'd put this up in case it helps you as well. We have procurement related cases, things like the integrated resources planning effort, renewables portfolio standard, and the resource adequacy program. We have rates related cases, cases like the PCIA, which I'll get more into today, and cases that set PG&E's rates, which then affect EBCE's rates. We have affordability and equity related cases, things like COVID-19 debt management, service disconnections, affordability. And then we have distributed energy resource related cases. This would be things like net energy metering, interconnection rules, and other kind of related cases. And then finally, kind of energy markets restructuring related cases. So this could be things like the provider of last resort, which is something that the CPUC is about to take up, like PG&E bankruptcy or PG&E safety investigation, those types of cases. So that's kind of an overview of all the different types of cases we're involved in. And of course, our objectives are always tailored to the case at hand, but they're aligned with our overall interests. And at the board meeting, I talked about EBCE's legislative program, which the board had previously approved. And we also kind of align our guidance there with what we're doing in the regulatory arena. We participate in cases several ways, sometimes as ourselves, as EBCE, sometimes as part of a joint CCA coalition, and then sometimes as part of a CCA participation Cal CCA participation, where our trade association will be kind of the main participant in the case, but behind the scenes, we're all working very, very closely with that trade association. So depending on the case, depending on who's interested and who's affected, we utilize one of those 3 approaches. Next slide, please. So today I was going to cover essentially 5 different cases that we're involved in. Resource adequacy, integrated resource planning, the COVID-19 customer debt relief, power charge indifference adjustment or PCIA, and then the PG&E Energy Resource Recovery Account or ERRA applications. Next slide, please.
Melissa, can I interrupt you? You're not going to cover NEM 3.0 today?
Not yet. I think
Okay.
we don't know enough about where we want to be in NEM to really do a presentation at this time. It's something we're following closely though. So resource adequacy is a really important proceeding for EBCE. These are essentially the guidelines that govern how much resource adequacy, or what was traditionally called capacity, EBCE needs to provide in order to ensure grid reliability. And I think one of our goals in providing resource adequacy is to find ways to do that, relying less on conventional gas generation and more on clean energy resources. So the CPUC has been kind of changing the rules on RA constantly over the last few years and been very engaged in that process. But their latest efforts are kind of focused on a couple different areas. One is some near-term program refinements, some tweaks, if you will. And then 2 is broad structural reform to the RA program. And I think that's because RA has become much more scarce. Prices have gone up quite substantially, and we've had some grid reliability problems. So the combination of the fact that it's gotten more expensive, harder to implement, and isn't working very well to achieve its objective has led to this reform effort. So in terms of the key near-term refinements issues that we're focused on, there's a few things. The CPUC is looking at increasing penalties for shortfalls in providing RA. It's also looking at some changes to the rules around how to set the RA requirement, what counting methodologies to use, how much the requirement should be, and then constraints on the different kinds of resources that we might use to meet our requirements. And then finally, some changes to the resource counting methodologies. I think that as we've seen more solar plus storage, as well as more behind the meter solar plus storage, the counting has gotten much more complicated. Similarly, we've been looking at innovative ways to rely more on demand response. And I think that has also complicated the methodologies a bit. In terms of key broad structural reform, really it's looking at how can the CPUC incorporate energy attributes and also look at even an hourly capacity requirement given the evolving mix of resources on the grid. So the big challenge here, of course, being the integration of clean energy onto the grid. How can you make sure that you have enough capacity at those times when you don't have enough of those resources that are more intermittent running? And so we've been very engaged. There have been a number of proposals. CalCCA, with a lot of support through EBCE, has been working, has a proposal that they've put out with Southern California Edison that really addresses some of these issues. And there have been a couple other proposals out there. We've been talking to all the parties, and at this point, we're awaiting a proposed decision from the CPUC, likely in May, which means we could have a final decision on RA reform as early as June. That's of course as early as it could be, given the fact that often things happen a little bit later than expected. This could certainly be pushed out. In any case, the earliest timeframe that we would see implementation of broad reform would be the compliance year 2023, which means what we'd be buying in 2022. So again, this is an issue we're very close to and engaged with. Kind of remains to be seen which direction the CPUC will go. If we don't like the proposal that's selected, then we'll look to an advocacy strategy to make sure that, you know, we can live with the results.
Okay, before you move on, I think we should just suggest that we take comments on each section rather than waiting to the end, because it's very sort of a lot of dense material. So I want to see if people had questions right now about this. I see any raised hands.
I don't have any questions. Thanks,
Okay,
Melissa.
I have a couple of questions, and that is just to put this into more sort of human terms. Okay. You need to know my husband works for Clean Energy SF. So some of this is familiar to me just from hearing these terms over decades, but in terms of understanding how this impacts our ratepayers, what this is about is saying, do you have enough resources to make sure that everybody gets the power they need, right? And yes, trying to figure out how much duplication or overcapacity is allowed or required so that nobody is without energy. And that then has an impact on what people pay, correct? Yeah. Is that a good way to look at it?
Yeah, maybe I can simplify a bit that essentially we are buying the certainty that some resources will be available at certain times to be put onto the grid. We're buying a compliance product. So we have to provide proof to the CPUC that we have bought so much of this compliance product. Our customers, of course, pay those costs.
And how does new technology like demand response kind of things, or, you know, the Internet of Things fit into this? How does that fold into these proceedings? If more of us are conscious about not doing laundry at 2 p.m., but waiting till midnight, what's the impact on these numbers of that?
Well, so I think the big challenge is how do you count those types of resources and how do you make sure they show up when they are supposed to show up? Mm-hmm. And so that's been a lot of the debate at the CPUC. How can we make sure that, for example, if we aggregate a bunch of load reductions from various customers, that they actually show up, that those load reductions happen, that people really do turn off their power when they say they're going to turn off their power, so that we don't have a blackout. That's one of the big challenges. And so I think the CPUC has looked at what do we need you to contract for? How can we be more precise about how you do your contracts so that we know that those resources are going to show up when they're supposed to?
And sort of a detailed question is, are our customers allowed to participate in OHM right now, which is the voluntary program to do that?
Yes. Yeah.
EBCE. Do we have, how much have we promoted this idea to our customers about sign up with us, we'll pay you for not using resources at bad times, or OHM will. I'm not exactly sure how that all works. And you know, what's the status right now of that? And how does that fit into this? Because it just feels like we're always talking about, let's build bigger pipes, let's build more, and we don't look at the demand side of the customer. So do any of these proceedings talk about that, and what are we doing about vision and OHM? And Cisco DeVries is my hero, so I just have to say that.
Yeah, certainly. It's definitely a big part of these conversations. And I would say that with EBCE, we don't have our own demand response program right now for customers like an OHM Connect, because when we did the local development business plan, I think we realized that there was enough of an opportunity for customers to sign up directly with an OHM Connect that it would just be duplicative efforts if EBCE was going to try to do what OHM Connect does. And so the strategy has been to say, hey, customers, if you want to sign up for OHM Connect, that's great. But then it's a contract between OHM Connect and the customer.
No, but when I tried to sign up, they told me I couldn't because I'm a customer of yours.
Huh.
So just so you know, I've been precluded from participating in this because I'm your customer. So anyway, we need to figure out the barriers to people helping be part of the solution. And I don't know who the right person on the staff is to deal with that. But I was told, no, you cannot do that because you're an EBCE customer.
Oh, that's very curious. Well, JP Ross, our VP of local development, it would be the person.
Okay.
But I'm happy to follow up with him as well.
That would be great. That'd be great. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from anyone about this whole area?
We do have Audrey Ichinose has her hand raised. I'm not sure if you'd like to have comment after, or.
Yeah, let's wait for comment after, if that's okay with the speaker who wanted to speak. I hope that'll work for you. I'm sorry I didn't notice that earlier. Okay, let's go ahead. Thank you, Melissa.
All right, next slide, please. And I will say, I know there's a lot of acronyms in here. I apologize in advance. That just seems to be the world of energy. And these are very detailed concepts. So please do ask questions, and I will continue to, try to simplify as I can. So let me know if I'm being too jargony. So integrated resources planning is another proceeding that we're heavily involved in. And I should mention, I probably should have mentioned this before the last slide, the CPUC regulates the CCAs in 3 key areas to align with state goals. So 1 is resource adequacy, 2 is the integrated resource plan, and 3 is the renewables portfolio standard, or RPS, which is like the renewable energy levels that we are required to buy. And so we are required to comply with each of those provisions. The municipal utilities are required as well to comply with all of those laws, but they are regulated by the California Energy Commission. But we are regulated at the Public Utilities Commission, as are the investor-owned utilities and the and energy service providers. So, yeah, this is another case where we are in a compliance proceeding. The proceeding has 2 different tracks. So it's a cyclical, it's a 2-year cycle. In the first year, all of us CCAs and other load serving entities have to file our integrated resource plan, which has to comply with a whole bunch of specifications that we get from the CPUC. And then the commission kind of compiles all those together, and they compare what all of this individual load serving entities said we're going to do. They compare that to their statewide plan to try to see if what we are procuring will meet those statewide goals. And then if the CPUC sees any shortages, they will open a procurement track, and then they'll determine the procurement is necessary. And then they will order us to buy certain quantities and types of energy, essentially. So, or capacity, or RA. the first procurement order that the CPUC has ever issued under the IRP, which is still a fairly new process, only a few years old. The first procurement order was issued in November of 2019, and it required an additional 3,000 megawatts statewide. And the first time that we have to prove that we have bought a portion of our share of that is August of 2021. So EBCE's portion, I believe, was about 100 megawatts. And I think you have to show 50% of that by August 2021. So, so we are complying with that, of course. And then recently, the CPUC released a ruling that outlined a proposal for a second procurement order. And that is because of the midterm reliability needs they see due to resource retirements. And there's some big resources coming offline in the next few years. The Diablo Canyon nuclear plant is one of them. There are a bunch of gas-fired power plants that rely on technology called once-through cooling that are being phased out via state law. And then there are just additional fossil retirements occurring. So as these facilities retire, there's more of a need for new resources to meet those retirements. So in this case, the amount is higher. It's 7,500 megawatts total in different tranches that go between 2023 to 2025. One of the things that the CPUC has in its ruling is this idea that it will actually carve out certain quantities of megawatts for certain technology types. And this is the first time they've done that. So they said, okay, the state need to buy geothermal, 1,000 megawatts, and long duration storage, 1,000 megawatts. And I think what's notable is those tend to be fairly expensive technology types. And then they have created a new methodology to decide how much we should buy. And instead of just being on a load share basis, which is how they did it previously, this time they said, we want to see how much you're contracted for now. And if you have bought less than others, then you will be allocated a greater share of this new procurement. It's a bit problematic because you have entities like the investor-owned utilities who are over-procured, and we pay the over-market costs of that over-procurement through the PCIA. But then if we get this obligation to then go buy more expensive reliability products on top, we might be it doesn't really go together well with the PCIA policy essentially. So, so we've been, talking with the commission on this one as well and making our points known through kind of the formal regulatory process, which includes comments and workshops. And we're expecting a decision in early summer of 2021. So we'll continue to engage very closely in this one. Happy to answer any questions.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Any questions from panelists? Yes, Brittany, please.
Just to clarify, this is only procurement, not storage that they're regulating with this specifically?
Well, they're asking us to buy reliability products, which could include energy storage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that clarification.
Anyone else? I had a question. I don't really understand how, after years of this, I should know, but how IRP fits in with the earlier discussion. So we have resource adequacy and we have integrated resource planning. What's the distinction between these two?
Resource adequacy is a 3-year look ahead, essentially. So it's a short term. Do we have enough in the next 3 years? Are we contracted well enough to make sure that our energy needs are met for every hour, every minute? Integrated resource planning is a longer term, medium to long term view. And it's saying, are we doing enough contracting now that the right facilities can be built, that the state has enough resources? If you don't do the integrated resource planning and folks don't plan appropriately, then you may have a compliance requirement under the RA program that you can't meet because there are no facilities available to buy the RA from.
Okay, great. Thank you. Other questions from panelists about this? Anyone else? Brittany, your hand is up, but I wondered if that was from before. Yeah, thanks. Okay, great. Thank you. Well, let's move on, Melissa. Thanks.
Next slide, please. All right, so the COVID-19 customer debt relief, no surprise, is a fairly new proceeding. And this proceeding is really focused on, are there relief programs that can be set up to make sure that customers are supported, or mechanisms that we can develop to make sure that we can reduce the accumulated arrearages that have started to pile up during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we're participating again in this proceeding, and the CPUC has been really, I think, excited about the analysis that EBCE has done on customer disconnections and arrearages. And so we have a lot of data, which we've been helping to provide to the CPUC to better understand what are the challenges and who are facing challenges at this time. So really, we're looking at identifying the customer classes that are struggling the most, looking to recommend effective relief strategies, and then make sure that we can allocate funding sources, but also in a fair and equitable way, as well as define a kind of a sunset for this program. So it's meant as a temporary support to make sure that folks don't rack up so much in debt that they can really never get back on track. So there's a few proposals I think that have been issued so far. One is there's a new CPUC arrearage management program that EBCE is participating in, where if customers are CARE or FERA and they have a certain amount in arrearage and that they can't pay, but they start to pay off their current bills, that each month over a 12-month period, some of that arrearage is forgiven. So they're looking at, should we expand this program to help with the COVID debt? Looking at extending payment plans to 24 months so that people have more time to pay off those arrearages. And then there's another proposal to look at a one-time kind of bill forgiveness amount. So again, we're engaged, we're sharing our experiences and trying to make sure that if there are funding sources available, we can access them, that our customers can benefit from them. And we're expecting, they're moving very quickly. So we're expecting a proposed decision in May, and we could have a final decision to implement as early as June 24th.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any questions about this from the panelists? I don't see any hands raised. I just had a quick question about whether we disagree with where this is going at all on that relief. Is there anything we would like to see different?
No, I think right now we're being heard and we have some good experience to share. So I think it's right on track.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
This is Jaime Patino.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, sorry for being late.
Oh, you broke up. We lost you. Oh, no. Jaime, could you call back? Because we can't hear you. I think we should move on and then hopefully he'll call back. Does that make sense to people? Okay, let's do that, but hopefully he'll call back. Okay, PCIA.
All right.
Our least favorite.
Favorite acronym to hate. So PCIA is a long way of saying a charge that we pay so that PG&E can recover uneconomic procurement costs for procurement that was done before we left PG&E service. So it's really important because for us to maintain our value proposition to our customers, i.e. our discount from PG&E's rate and at least for Bright Choice, our generation rate that we offer customers plus the PCIA together have to be less than PG&E's bundled generation rate. So PG&E's bundled customers, i.e. the customers that are still taking both both delivery and generation service from PG&E. They essentially, their PCIA is essentially already just built into their rate. And for us, they're two separate rates. So the PCIA, there was a very, I would say, unfavorable framework adopted back in October of 2018. And the CPUC's rulemaking is still open, and implementation of that framework is ongoing. We've actually been waiting for more than a year for the commission to issue a proposed decision on the Working Group 3 proposal in that proceeding, and that would really essentially codify the ability of CCAs to get an allocation that they can accept from the utility of some of the products essentially that the utility has today. And I think we've talked about this in the past with the board about whether or not we wanted to take those attributes, and we have decided to do so, but that's been on a year-by-year basis as PG&E desires to make them available to us. It's not something they're required to make available to us. And so the Working Group 3 proposal would kind of codify that and put some rules around it so that we know what to expect and how it's going to happen. In any case, the PCIA rate is not set in the PCIA proceeding. So the proceeding is really what should this structure of the PCIA look like, but the actual rate is set in the next proceeding that I'm going to talk about, which is the ERRA filing.
Okay, taking a second, I think Chair Patino is back with us and he had wanted to say something earlier. Are you there?
Yes, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the programs that we have for people that are behind in their bills. Are we also looking at what other community energy companies are doing in the area? And just this way, we're not reinventing the wheel and we're trying to do best practices.
Yeah. So, I mean, the big program that we have right now is the arrearage management program, and that is actually a program that was developed at the CPUC that we get to choose whether or not we want to offer our customers. So we're one of a number of CCAs that are offering that program to our customers. PG&E is also offering that program to their customers. All customers pay for the program through the delivery side of their bill. So we actually get funds from PG&E to reimburse us for the cost of participating in that program. Yeah.
I'll just also add that I think, this is really focused on what is happening from a regulatory perspective. And so what Melissa's commenting on in terms of the COVID debt relief proceeding, as well as the arrearage management program as specific to what's been sort of approved from a CPUC perspective, we are separately from that looking at what CCAs and other municipal utilities are doing in terms of general debt relief that may not be specific to a CPUC proceeding or otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do people have questions about the PCIA proceedings beyond saying it's terrible? We hate it. Okay. Again, this fits in with the resource adequacy piece, right? Because we're being told you have to buy a certain amount, but you also have to pay PG&E for the amount they already bought, but they didn't really now need. So it seems like a double accounting and a double charge to us. Is there any hope in the PCIA proceeding that can be adjusted, or is that just not, they're not connected in that sense?
Well, I think the Working Group 3 proposal is really the best shot at it, because that's where the utility would essentially have to allocate to us a proportion of that RA.
Okay,
Today
great.
they don't have to. So as we've discussed at the last board meeting, CalCCA is sponsoring SB 612. Portantino is the author, and that bill would essentially statutorily require what was in the Working Group 3 proposal, because we haven't been getting much movement from the CPUC on PCIA. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions from anyone before we move on? I don't see any other hands raised. Okay.
Next slide.
Thank you.
All right. ERRA. Most people don't even know what ERRA stands for. So I put it up here so that you can see it, but you can just call this ERRA. ERRA has, it's also kind of an annual cycle. It has two different applications that the utilities are required to file annually. So the first is the ERRA forecast application, and the second is the ERRA compliance application. The forecast application is filed every year on June 1st, and it essentially will set the PG&E bundled generation rate as well as the PCIA rate for the next year. So what they're going to file this year on June 1 will set the 2022 rate. The CPUC usually acts by the year end of the year, so that the rates usually take effect in Q1. It used to really be kind of Jan 1 on the dot, but in the last couple of years, I think these proceedings have gotten a lot more complicated. We've certainly participated much more closely, and so it hasn't always been on Jan 1. The issues that we typically focus on in this proceeding are things like the Brown Power True-Up and unsold renewable portfolio standard. So these are, you know, how much money should we be getting back? Like how much credit should we be getting back in the PCIA based on the cost of power? Also, unsold RPS is a situation where the utility might keep excess renewable energy and not sell it, and then claim that it has no value. So these have been really big issues. This is kind of where, you know, the devil's in the details. What I will say is that our advocacy here has been really, really helpful in keeping the PCIA lower. Our advocacy in 2019 reduced the PCIA by 600 million. In 2020, this is in 2020, sorry, it says 2021 on the slide, 200. So we are getting ready to participate in the next round. And then in addition to the June filing, the utility is required to update that filing in November. So they file in June, we go through our administrative litigation process, and then in November, they refine those numbers. And then that refinement in November is used to set the rates in Q1. So it's a very fast moving process, but we've been very actively engaged now for the last couple of years, and it's been very impactful. The second application that PG&E is required to file by March 1 every year, it's called the compliance application. So whereas the forecast is a look forward, compliance is a look back. So it will look at how did PG&E manage its generation portfolio for the previous year. The PUC usually acts within about a year of the filing, so it's also a fairly fast-moving proceeding. And the issues we tend to look for involve accounting. So we're looking for things like, again, unsold renewables energy, like why was that not sold, and what is the actual value of that, and what does PG&E say the value was? Things like timing mismatches in terms of when they book revenues and costs. And so what we find is that historically, there haven't been very many parties intervening in this proceeding to take a really close look at the accounting. And now by being in this proceeding, we've already made some structural changes to the way the accounting is done. We've certainly gotten PG&E to agree to certain changes. And it's just really important that we continue, I think, to provide that oversight to make sure that they do what they say they're going to do and that we're not unfairly being charged. So in 2020, the advocacy, we did reduce the PCIA, again, about 100 million. So PG&E filed its latest compliance application for the 2020 year in March of this year. And we are now engaged in that proceeding as well. So this is kind of the best opportunity we have to lower those PCIA costs.
Okay, questions from panelists? I don't see anyone's hand raised. I have to admit, I'm completely confused. What's the connection between, really I am, between this and the PCIA? Why is the action on PCIA happening here and not in the other proceeding?
So this is the proceeding that decides what PG&E can charge its customers and what PG&E can charge our customers via the PCIA. The PCIA proceeding decides what should go into the PCIA.
Got it.
Yeah, it's the methodology behind PCIA, and it kind of gives them the rules for how to implement. And then this application is the actual implementation.
Okay, so that's what you're saying. People have not focused enough on the accounting and these leftover things, and now we're saying it's the devil's in the detail here. It's in the numbers themselves. Okay, thank you. Other questions from anyone? Okay, thank you, Melissa.
All right, next slide, please. think I have one more.
This appears to be the last slide.
Sorry?
This appears to be the last slide.
Oh, is this the last slide? Okay. All right. Well, so those are the proceedings that I wanted to update you on today. And again, as Howard mentioned, happy to kind of work with this committee to determine what your focus wants, what you guys would like the focus to be going forward. But we can certainly get into more details about our process and about the regulatory processes at the board retreat.
Well, thank you, Melissa. That was really helpful. I see we have 2 people in the public with their hands raised. I thought we would take public comments from them now, and I don't think we engage in a back and forth between the public and the staff, but happy to follow up on questions that you have when we come back as a body. So Ms. Dogan, I hope I pronounced your name right. Can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks. That's correct. It's Jada Durmaz-Dogan with Local Clean Energy Alliance. Thanks for this informational presentation. And since you mentioned integrated resource planning and resource adequacy in your presentation, I would like to make a comment related to them. We would like to see EBC invest in local solar plus storage instead of remote large solar plus storage. Local and distributed energy systems, as you know, increase reliability and local resilience and minimize demand for remote energy. They also provide important local economic and social benefits and democratize energy decision-making. In my written comment, I shared a link to Clean Coalition's new piece titled "The Transmission Elephant in the Room." Maybe you have seen it already. The piece talks about the economic, environmental, and resilience benefits of local solar plus storage. And there's a link to a new study by Vibrant Clean Energy that explains why local solar for all costs less. So Adrian, thanks. I think you already shared that one with the members. And also, like, I was planning to save this for the next agenda item, but Jamie Patino already asked this question: what other CCAs have been doing to help their customers with their utility debt? Thanks for that question. I actually have 2 examples. I already mentioned Peninsula Clean Energy's bill relief credits several times. And similarly, MCE Clean Energy recently decided to offer $10 monthly credits to its care and para customers and $20 monthly credits to its small business customers that will go through December 2021. And I added links to both Peninsula Clean Energy's and MCE Clean Energy's bill relief credits in my written comment. So Adrian, I would appreciate it if you could share that links as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dogan. That was very helpful. Vaughn, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, going same thing on the IRP, only with the long duration storage requirement. I think you put out an IRP or something back in December-ish timeframe. What response have you gotten? And also, I follow this stuff since I'm a retired electrical engineer. There's the technologies are changing right now, so how can you make a determination about long duration storage, meaning not lithium, not 2 hours, but much longer? How can you make a determination now when in the next 5 years that most of that stuff is going to change?
Thank you. Okay, or Audrey, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I'm sorry.
It's Ichinose. Thank you very much,
Ichinose.
Chair Harrison. I loved your questions. I really think it's great to have, at least some exposure, sort of personal experience with, all the ins and outs of this extremely complicated picture. I wanted to make 2 comments. One was about CalCCA, and the other one was about the RA. But the first comment on CalCCA was, I don't know if you've just seen their press release, but I think it's really worth noting that right now they're celebrating 201 communities that are now participating in 24 CCAs throughout California, with a load of about 25% currently in IOU territory. So, and that is expected to expand to 38% next year. So CCAs can really make a difference. And so your work, both staff and board, work is really important. I just had a question though about Cal CCA's backing of SB 612. I'd like to know what contribution did EBCE as a CCA contribute to that, the formulation of that legislation? I'm not so sure it's such a great move, but there'll be a lot of discussion about that later. And then the second question about RA is that, yes, so the RA, I think the public focuses on the supply side for RA, and it's naturally, but we should take into account not just the demand side, which I guess Chair Harrison brought up about Ohm Connect, the program that's private in Oakland. I mean, in EBCE territory, but also there's a lot of reform needed in just the market practices where the supply and demand are, they're settled, and there's a lot that needs transparency needs to be pursued. And so I guess when Melissa raised the question of, the bodies that the public policy team is involved in, engaged in, you did mention CAISO, and I guess I'm interested in what activities your public policy team has engaged in with respect to this other area that needs reform, the market.
System operator, yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chinose.
Chinose, thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Any other public comment? I don't see any other raised hands. Okay, bring it back to the panel. I don't know, Ms. Brown, if you want to answer any of the questions about our role with CAISO, and also the question about the technology changes. I don't know who the appropriate person is to answer that, how they will impact our view of solar and storage, et cetera. That's a big question. So let's start with CAISO, because it's more direct.
Sure. So we certainly participate in some of the CAISO's proceedings. One of the big ones we've been engaged in is called the RA enhancements proceedings. So in addition to the CPUC looking at new rules for RA and RA reform, the CAISO is doing the same. One of the things we really try to do when we're working with them is ensure that the kinds of investments we want to make will be supported and will be recognized and will get adequate credit so that we can continue making those kinds of investments. And that includes things like the aggregated behind the meter solar plus storage, the demand response, a lot of the things that EBCE has been really focused on through our programmatic work. And so that's really kind of been what we do there. I will say that CAISO tends to have very strong views on RA, and often is even more conservative than the commission in terms of not necessarily always being thrilled about new technologies. So that is a barrier, and it's something that we're continuing to work with them on to try to highlight the ways that we can, change or adapt the structure to fit kind of the current landscape and the future landscape.
Okay.
Second question was about, can you remind me? Sorry.
It's sort of about how can we project use of battery technology and storage when it's changing so fast? What assumptions do we make building into that? Like what we can do right today? Do we look ahead?
I think that is one of the big challenges with investments in long duration storage, because depending on the type of long duration storage you're looking at and the nature of the length of the investment, you could make an investment that very quickly is superseded by new technologies. So I don't know that we have an answer there, except that we agree that that's a big challenge.
So you use the current technologies available to project, because that's what you know. Is that a way to look at it? Okay. You
Yeah.
want to talk about SB 612 in the next section? There
No,
were
I think
questions about that.
actually.
But someone else will. Okay, so we'll put that over to the legislative section.
Well, there's no legislative section today.
Okay. So we'll talk about the next meeting where we talk about legislation. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to say also, I resonate with this idea of local that was brought up by the first caller. I think it's beyond what we're talking about today also, but I didn't want to just leave that comment lying there. I think it's really important we think about how we look at our own resiliency. You know, it's great having Elon Musk and his inventiveness and all that, but I don't want my future tied to him. I'm looking for distribution. So any comments from the members at this point? Anything else? I'm going to hand this back over to Chair Patino now. I have to go deal with my elderly mother's 97 this week, and she needs me. So I will come back if I can, but I want to thank you all, and thank you, Chair Patino. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for stepping in, and best wishes to you and your mother. Okay, so where are we going next here on this?
If we are concluded with the regulatory update, we have the marketing and account services update next.
Okay, let's move forward with that.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Annie Henderson. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Account Services. While Adrian pulls this up, I'll just say, given that we have all new members of this subcommittee, with the exception of Director Hernandez from Dublin, I am taking this very high level. So I'm presenting you sort of the team, who does what our focus areas are, and then also we'll be providing sort of the main activities over the next 6 months. I am not seeing the slide. Oh, there we go. I think there was either a long delay or it just took a while for those to load. Thank you, Adrian. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, fantastic. All right, so we can go to the first slide, please, Adrian. So this subcommittee is called the Marketing and Regulatory, and maybe Legislative is in there as well. But because I oversee the team that also does account services as well as public engagement, I'm including that in this update. So if you think about what we refer to ourselves as the MOS team, we're some of the primary contact points with our customers. Of course, now that we've launched programs and there's program participation and incentives or other support programs, you know, that is a major touch point as well. But here in the marketing and account services is a lot of our public facing interaction. So I'll go over the team structure, our focus areas, which are marketing, separately account services, and then separately public engagement, and then the major activities, much more condensed than what Melissa just presented to you. So I think we'll have plenty of time for questions. And again, I will be doing my board retreat. I believe it's now in July. And so we can do a deeper dive on any number of things. And so I welcome your feedback now so that I know how to set up that presentation for later this summer. Next slide, please. I'm not sure, I might just be getting a really long delay. Oh, there we go. All right, so we have, as I've now said a few times, sort of 3 pillars within the marketing and account services team. So we have our marketing director, Dan Lieberman. A lot of these people are here on the phone. So as you have questions, I might pass it to them for some response. We have two fellows, one who is focused on outreach, Juan Cortez, and one who is focused on communications, Jamal Bernardez. They had initially interned with us, and we were happy to bring them on as fellows when they just recently graduated from school last spring, summer. And the marketing team does a whole lot. They do all of our social media. So we have active accounts on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Nextdoor, if you want to call that social media. So we're constantly putting up new content to engage with people. I encourage you all to go in and follow us, like us, There's good information there. We do energy tips. We are highlighting various energy influencers for the different heritage months. So we just recently did Black History Month as well as Women's History Month. So highlighted prominent energy contributors in those areas. This team also is in charge of our website. So some of you have been, I think, alternates. So you might recall that when we initially launched in 2018, we had a very different looking website. Last August, we updated that to make it a little bit more modern, a little bit more sleek. You know, we are maturing as an agency and we want that to be reflective in one of our major touch points with our customers, which, you know, in this day and age is your website. And so any sort of content updates or new structural elements, maybe that's a form to participate in a program, that all goes through the marketing team. Brand awareness, we do twice a year surveys as well as other efforts to increase brand awareness. So those include some online advertising, print advertising, of course, webinars. And then, you know, the last thing we mentioned, and press and events. We have events and outreach. Now, when we initially launched to our first communities commercial back in June 2018, then with a big push for our original residential communities in November of 2018, we did a lot of in-person outreach and events. And of course, starting in March 2020, that has all been put on hold. We hope to come back to this. And I'm just going to note here that I hope to follow up with this committee and actually the entire board with just a very brief survey asking you, you know, what is sort of the marquee event in your jurisdiction? We believe we have an idea, but it's always good to get new feedback. Maybe things have changed. Certainly want information. You know, a lot of these things as we go and we're even looking for this summer, it appears that the decisions haven't been made about whether or not these events will even take place for obvious reasons. So if you know of anything that is certain to be virtual, that's something that we can participate in, please let us know. So I'll be asking you about events. And events is sometimes we are there in person, sometimes we sponsor the event, so we get a lot of brand awareness. And customer needs to see like our logo and name at least 7 times before it actually sinks in. So we still have a long way to go there. We also are doing hyper-local sponsorships or local sponsorships, which is various community-based organizations. This is all run again through the marketing team. And these local sponsorships can be anything from your Little League team to a robotics league, to Girls Garage is one that we've done in Berkeley. It could be your bocce tournament in Dublin. And it's really just to sort of show that we are part of our community and get our name out there. So, people are probably not showing up at their Little League game expecting to hear about their local energy provider, but that's why we need to be there to get them to think about their local energy provider. So I will also in that same survey be asking if there are any additional community-based organizations that you think maybe would be a good match for these sponsorships, or it's just an organization that we should be in touch with because a lot of members of your community see them as a trusted resource. And so we are now starting to provide regular content to CBOs, whether it's on our programs or maybe it's on this time of use transition. Maybe it's about, hey, make sure to log into your PG&E account and put your latest email because, within the next 6 months, sadly, we're going to be approaching fire season again. So there's a lot that we can do by working through our community-based organizations. So as you can see, a lot goes on in marketing. I don't even think that was a comprehensive summary. So I'll move on to the next one, which is account services. So we have our senior manager, who is Kelly Brezovac. We have our business account service analyst, Danny Kelly, which you can think of that as sort of our executive account manager. And then Gabrielle Ruxin is our customer care coordinator, who does a lot of work currently around our solar customer policy. But this team is really looking, their customer care, customer service focus. So that includes billing operations, making sure that, especially for like our largest accounts, that all of the data transactions that are required for a proper bill to go out are happening. When you do over 32,000 bills a day, there is bound to be one or two data transactions that do not go as planned. And so Danny has an eagle eye on that, making sure that we're providing, top of the line customer service to our largest accounts, as well as providing information on their rate changes and other things that impact them. So Kelly is also responsible for overseeing our call center. So right now, our call center is provided by a third-party vendor. That's the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, a separate division called Community Energy Services. And they've been providing this service since we've launched. The call center support is very, very good, given that these call center reps most of them have been with SMUD for a long time. They're very familiar with the kind of questions that utility customers have, and that's extremely valuable. So being able to talk about high bills and when those high bills normally hit, being able to talk about solar net energy metering. SMUD went through their time of use, which they call time of day, transition last year. So they have a lot of lessons learned that they're able to hand over that knowledge to our call center reps. And right now, those reps are very busy because we are in the middle of enrollment. And so there is an increase in the call volume, and they're able to scale up accordingly. The key account management I mentioned, this is, again, some of our largest customers. Other things that get included in there is direct access. So I don't think Melissa touched on any direct access. There must not be an active proceeding right now. But what that is, for those that are new, is a lottery system that allows typically your biggest customers to buy their energy directly rather than going through us or through PG&E. They can just make their contracts directly. So, there's one that I think is in the public knowledge is BART. BART is enormous. They use a lot of electricity. They buy directly. Most of University of California, Berkeley, is on direct access. So these are some really, really big customers, and there's only a small number that are able to gain access to this option. And it's actually become a lot less. It used to be hugely beneficial to go DA from PG&E, but I think now with CCAs offering a lot, often a discount, as well as the PCIA impact, which also applies to direct access customers, we're seeing less of that. But Danny, tracks that, tries to identify ways in which we can retain customers, and has done so successfully, and has in fact brought some back to us, which is fantastic. And then the other work that goes on in account services is billing operations. That it's two words, but it encompasses quite a bit. So as I said, there's a lot of data transfers with our data technology team oversees a lot of that. But then when there are errors, it is this team that's really digging in and figuring out what went wrong. Or things like, Union City has now implemented its utility users tax as of this month. It didn't have a utility users tax before. Well, we want to make sure that utility users tax shows up on the bill correctly, gets applied correctly. And so this is the team that monitors that and makes sure those kind of things happen. When Dublin's residential customers are opted up to Renewable 100 in October, this is the team that's going to manage that process. So they also have a big scope, a lot to do, and especially right now with enrollment and time of use transition, all of those things touch nearly every single customer. And so a lot going on that back end billing operations side. And then our last section is public engagement. This is Alex DeGiorgio. He stands alone. He's one but mighty. And he does so he oversees our community advisory committee. That's been a bit of a shifting role, as quite honestly, because Stephanie Cabrera, who was our previous clerk, she had overseen that, and since her leaving, Alex has taken on a bigger role with the CAC. But it's also, that is his place sort of within EBCE to be our representative to a lot of the community stakeholder groups. So the CAC, other major stakeholders like Sierra Club, those relationships are held with Alex, as well as our relationships with the board, but also your staff. So he hosts a meeting which we refer to as our Muni Pals. So it is the sustainability staff from our member jurisdictions, just so that we are coordinated, or at least try to stay informed, share knowledge around what you are doing within your jurisdiction that is related to the broader work of EBCE, and of course programs gets involved in that as well. But your staff members have been fantastic at helping us do outreach. So many of you have sustainability newsletters, so not just your city council or your own newsletter, but have an actual sustainability newsletter, and that really helps us get out the word on things like our Resilient Home program or webinars that are coming up. What is not mentioned here is new community expansion. So the work that was done to help support and educate Newark, Pleasanton, and Tracy, and help support them in joining our JPA and then launching services, going out and presenting at those council meetings, that all fell to Alex as well. And he was asked to do that as a sprint. He came on in June, and we added those 3 cities by the end of the year. So that was a big lift given all of the steps that come in between. And then Alex is also responsible, and I think this was not maybe foreseen as his job description, but this is the world and new things come up. So we've had a lot of local emergencies that he has been sort of a hub for. So that started with the first ever public safety power shutoff. So, and wildfires. Luckily, the wildfires have not been too close to our service territory, but we've certainly been part of the PSPS events. And so Alex participates with the Office of Emergency Services. There's also a standalone for City of San Leandro. He works with the sheriff. He has a direct relationship with the sheriff in Alameda County, and we'll expand that to Tracy to make sure that they're covered. But he works, with local staff as well as sort of regional staff around those types of local emergencies. And then, of course, last year, beginning in March, he has been our representative and point of contact around pandemic response, again, through the various county and regional channels. And then he did continues to do a lot of work on our COVID relief grant, which I think unfortunately sometimes get overlooked. So we have contributed, as an agency, almost $2 million to various organizations, most of them about food insecurity and healthcare, to support our local residents and businesses during the pandemic. And then that is just, we started that in April maybe of last year. Yeah, we went into shelter in place mid-March. We got that money sort of out the door in April, and we've continued to do several rounds of that. And so Alex has had a critical role there. Can we go to the next slide? I said this was going to be high level, but as you can see, I have a lot to say about the work that the team does because they do a great job, and there's a lot there. There's a lot of substance. So I probably spoke to a lot of this already, but here's our marketing overview. So some of our major customer communications channels, as I mentioned, the social media, and that is also responding to social media, right? Like that's where a lot of people go to ask questions now. I feel like I'm presenting my age when I'm like, yeah, they go to social media to ask questions. That's crazy, but no, that's what people do. Also our website, our paid digital and print ads. The marketing team is also responsible for its monthly, every other month newsletter that is very customer focused, customer facing. There is a second newsletter that actually Melissa is in charge of that is more intended. It's definitely more in the weeds, a little bit more wonky, and it's intended to be sent to influential policy advocates and decision makers. And we support that because it goes out through the platforms that this team manages. But this newsletter here is meant to be our customer newsletter. Currently, this team is responsible for the targeted marketing that's being done for programs. So for example, the Resilient Home, we have been doing multiple various email campaigns So with the data we have, we can do a lot of customer segmentation and be very specific in the messaging that goes out. For example, hello customer, we know that you were part of the PSPS event and had your power shut off last year. Here's something that you could do: get solar plus battery and have more reliability in your home, have greater safety. And so the marketing team has been running those various marketing email campaigns. We also, all of the compliance notifications go through the marketing team. So to bring everyone up to speed, I know this is a lot to take in. There are sort of two major annual communications that we are required to send out. One is the power content label that goes out in October, roughly, of each year, and it shows the previous year's sort of power content. So which percentages did you have from various sources? And then it compares it to the state of California. The joint rate mailer comes out approximately July, and that is, it does have our power content on there, but it is, the real focus there is a comparison of rates between EBCE and PG&E. And so we have to, and those are, that's sort of at this point in time, what are the current rates? The joint rate mailer goes to all current customers. The power content label goes to any customers you served in the previous year. So given that we, by the way, I should say today is the first day of mass enrollment for Newark, Pleasanton, and Tracy. This is a really big day for our team. We're very excited. Not everybody, there's about 80,000 accounts. They're not all coming on board today, but as April 1, this is our first day to begin. With those 80,000, we're over, I think we're around 630,000 accounts. And so, this is no small mailer to be sending out. It's pretty substantial. And then in addition to that, of course, right now we have all of the new enrollment mailers that we are sending out to Newark, Pleasanton, and Tracy. So you do 2 in the 2 months prior to starting service, and then 1 the month you start service, and then 1 in the month following the start of service. But anytime anyone moves in, so somebody moves into Emeryville and they previously lived in San Francisco, they're going to receive 2 notices over 2 months from us saying, hey, you're now an EBCE customer, and making sure that they're aware of that and giving them the opportunity to opt out or opt up or participate in our programs. And so that is also part of what the marketing team oversees, is that design of those mailers, as well as customer surveying and market research. There's a lot more here, but I'm going to pause there as I look at the time. I want to make sure we have time for questions, but I did want to add some fun facts about marketing. So prior to our largest launch in November 2018, in June 2018, we wanted to get a survey to get a baseline of, have people even heard of community choice energy? We knew they wouldn't have heard of East Bay Community Energy. And 6% of the respondents at that time said, yeah, that sounds familiar. So we did this again. The first one was an in-person, what they call intercept survey, meaning like that person who stops you on the sidewalk. We did this again in October 2020. This time it was online, but 35% of respondents were familiar with EBCE. So clearly we're getting the word out. We'd like to see that much higher. PG&E has a bit of a head start on us with name recognition and 100 years of service. So I don't know that we'll get there, but I'd also like to get there with lots of good news and not the bad news that maybe sometimes people associate with PG&E. And then the next one was just 1 million fun facts. So we've hit the million mark for a lot of things. It's the notices that we send out every year. As I mentioned, we're up to 630,000 for each PCL and the joint rate mailer. Also, in the last year, we set up, several of you might have this for your local jurisdictions as well. It's called Gov Delivery, or Granicus. So it's a special email platform just for governments. Which has, basically you get whitelisted easier. So it really helps to get through to customers. And using this new service, just in the last 6 months, we've sent out over 1 million emails. So that is between some of our compliance emails, but also promoting our programs. And then the last is that the campaigns that are run by this team, the paid digital ads and the promoted social posts, result in over 1 million impressions every month. And those are all targeted, when it's digital, you can, they're what they call geofence. You can target much easier and say, the person must be within this zip code. And so we have ramped that up recently and really increased the amount of impressions that we're seeing. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Chair Patino, did you want to take questions as we go along? I see that Director Kick opened her video, so I'm wondering if she
No,
wanted
I thought
to
that
ask a
was your last
question.
slide. I'll wait till the end.
Oh, okay.
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 Thank you.
Okay.
I was gonna ask that
All right.
also.
Okay. All right. I do have 3 more slides. Okay. I'm long-winded today. Let's see. So call center, we've talked a lot about account services already. So the oversight of the call center, this includes making sure that our call center is up to date. So, Vice Chair Harrison, I'm very sorry you had that experience with OhmConnect. There is no reason why they should have said you can't participate as an EBCE customer. That could be that call center rep just wasn't, they needed a refresher. So we try to avoid situations like that by always providing talking points and refreshers to the call center staff. There's a lot going on. So there's, feedback on board decisions, policy changes, changes in our value proposition, changes with the PCIA that might impact bills. So we are constantly making sure that we're sharing that information and providing refresher training to the call center. Sometimes it's hard to keep all of it in your head. So maybe that's what happened with the OhmConnect situation. And then, because of that, all of that interaction directly with our customers, the account services team is probably, has their finger closest to the pulse of our customers. So they're able to come back and say, this is what we're hearing. This is some of the concerns, and sharing that, maybe it's going to impact policy, but most frequently it's like, how could this program serve this need that we're hearing about? So the key account management, as I mentioned, it's our largest customer. So that is some bill analysis, some special programs. It is customer retention, certainly, as I mentioned with the direct access. And it's also just making sure that those customers stay informed, that we have some stickiness with them so that they do stay with us, because our large customers are sort of, they're our baseline load, and you need that kind of stable baseline in order to really get some of the economies of scale that allow us to offer customers discounts. For the billing operations, this is our rate update. So every time PG&E changes their rates, we've got to adjust ours so that we maintain our value proposition. Gabrielle just completed this for the rate change that PG&E went through with March. We have our time of use transition. So this is for all of you who maybe haven't heard, for any tiered or volumetric residential customer in Alameda County, they are transitioning to a time of use, meaning peak prices at certain times, off-peak prices at other times. That transition is happening officially next month, May, for those specific residential customers. Billing Ops also oversees what we call mass enrollment. That started today for Newark, Pleasanton, and Tracy, and then dealing with any errors or anomalies. Luckily, we haven't seen any of these in a while, but again, there's just the sheer volume that we do means that you have to keep an eye on those things. Our account services is also, I'd say, in the last year, taken a much more active role in some of the work that Melissa's team is doing, where it's sort of initial stages of this PUC developing programs. And this is the team who knows how it's actually going to get rolled out to a customer. So Kelly especially has been participating in a lot of that work by helping to guide the policy towards something that can actually be implemented and will be useful. So rather than having this disconnect between well-intentioned policy at the state level and then the operational level, we're trying to bring that together. And I think that's going to be hugely helpful as we do move forward to like the so disadvantaged communities green tariff has yet to be implemented, but she's been very involved in that. And then the NEM program management, that is our solar program. It is more hands-on than you might want to believe. There's a lot of, those tend to be the most common customer to call our call center. We do an annual true up, which has some complexities because we're trying to address all the edge cases and we want to be fair and equitable. So there's a lot going on in the NEM space. For some fun facts, 32,000 bills every business day, and that was before our expansion, so that number is just going to go up. And our call center gets about 250 calls a week. I'd say right now that's roughly doubled, and that's sort of the combined impacts of the new enrollment as well as letters going out about the time of use transition. Okay, one more sort of deep dive slide, and then we have the next 6 months, but hopefully I've called out a lot of that stuff. So could we go to the next slide? Perfect. So for the public engagement overview, I've mentioned a lot of this. We're going through the process right now of seating new CAC members. For any of you who have maybe received those applications for review, know that you can reach out to Alex with any questions that you have. He is also in, I would say, at least weekly, if not more so, contact with a lot of the staff, your sustainability staff, in some cases, your staff that might support the city council or the board, answering questions about upcoming items, looking for feedback on how we should manage some things. We often ask the cities to help us promote or get the word out about various programs and policies. And then, as I mentioned before, the local emergencies, and it falls under Alex. Hopefully that becomes a smaller scope for him. I think with the flex alerts, with the CPUC is definitely very focused on trying to kick up large-scale demand response programs so that we don't see brownouts or blackouts this summer. But, if and when we do, Alex is our point on helping to communicate with our local jurisdictions. So a couple fun points for public engagement is that we have, since we've launched, been engaged with the Stop Waste group called the Technical Advisory Group, which is made up, it's another JPA, which local sustainability staff are on the TAG group, as we called it. We just recently we still go, Alex still listens because it's all very relevant and related work to what we do at EBCE, but now we have our own second meeting that we call our Muni Pals. And this is at a separate time so we can focus on EBCE and really have more of an active dialogue. And it also has allowed us to pull in Tracy because Stop Waste is a JPA just of Alameda County. And so with that, we can go to my final slide, which is what's coming up over the next 6 months. So we have our new community enrollment started today, as well as our third notice going out. Next month, we'll have our fourth notice and our first customer bill. So even though we started enrolling people today, it just means that's all on the back end. They'll get their bill in April and it'll still just be PG&E, but when they get their bill in May is when they're going to see EBCE on there. So we are already starting to queue up some Understanding Your Bill webinars. To be honest, most people don't look at their bills until they feel like, oh, it's very expensive. Why is it so expensive? So we try to get out ahead of this and make people aware and also help them understand how they can see the savings that are provided. And then, of course, we'll continue to do outreach. We just had another solar webinar yesterday, and I think we have another one coming up for new communities. Time of use is it stretches out for a very long time. Last month, and sort of ongoing a little bit this month, is our commercial rate transition. So not all, well, I should take that back. They changed the time of use rates for commercial customers. And so those customers will be, who weren't already on one of these new rates, are transitioning as of last month. This month, is solar customers everywhere who have an anniversary date in April are transitioning of use if they were a NEM 1.0 customer. We are also sending out a notice to those people. So through our analysis, we're able to see, okay, this person, if they don't change anything in their behavior, will in fact spend more on time of use than they would have under this volumetric rate. Surprisingly, that's only like 10% of our residential customers. Most people are going to see a financial benefit on this new rate, even if they don't change anything they're doing, which I think is shocking because I think most people hear peak hours 4 to 9 and they think, how could I, that's when I do everything in my household. I'm making dinner, I'm doing the laundry, I'm sitting down and watching some Netflix. You know, it seems like prime time, but because of the minimal differential for this initial time of use rate, most people are going to financially benefit without making any change. So then if they do actually change and they run their dishwasher in the morning rather than in the night, they're going to see even greater savings. But there is a small population that won't. And so we want to make sure that they know of the options available to them, either that changing your habits, changing your rate, or just take advantage of what's called bill protection. So for the first year after this default change, anyone who is part of the default, if they stay on it for 12 months, at the end of the 12 months, both EBCE and PG&E are going to look at what they paid versus what they would have paid on this, you know, the flat rate. And if they paid more, we're going to pay them the difference. So there are definitely protections for customers, but the whole concept is to shift people away from when energy is most expensive and dirtiest on the grid. So in May, all of those flat rate customers, again, it's only the flat rate customers. If you already have, you know, an electric vehicle, if you've already changed the time of use, nothing's going to happen. It's just the flat rate folks are going to switch over to time of use in Alameda County. And then in November, those residential customers in San Joaquin County, Tracy, will switch over. But that's not all. We are doing program marketing. So we've got some great programs going. We've got more on the way. We want to do more to promote them. So that's web updates, it's email campaigns, it's digital campaigns, lots going on there. We hope to be sort of expanding our resources soon. We have our NEM true up. So April is the true up month, sort of happens April, May. Value proposition, I don't foresee, and I have not heard that we will be changing our value proposition, but per our JPA, we do an annual sort of rate assessment and open it up for public comment. And that's aligned with our budget because obviously what we charge in our rates has a direct impact on our revenue. So that'll be coming up in May, June, just opening for public comment, which last year we did it and there was no change. Was it last year or the year before? It was the year before. I think we opened it up. There was no change. It was the same value proposition, and we ran webinars and workshops, in-person workshops, and nobody would show up. But that is what community choice energy is. You hold these spaces for people to come and provide comment if they feel compelled to do so. We're also going to continue with COVID relief. So it's been mentioned both by members here as well as members of the public. You know, what are we doing to help those customers in debt relief? And we have done a lot so far, the $2 million in COVID grants. You know, in the previous budget, our sort of write-offs, what we assume will be uncollectible debt, went from 0.5% to 2.5%. So we might not be calling it like debt forgiveness, but you know, that it's sort of built in already to what we're doing. Like that money is going to come off of people's bills potentially. It's just sort of managed a different way. But we are looking, okay, how can we be more proactive in providing some sort of relief? But we really want to look at it in a way that, like, how can we do this so it has the greatest impact? Like, it's great if everybody gets $10 off a month, but does that really change the situation? How do we identify those people who the $10 is going to make a big difference? Or maybe we can give them 20 because we're not giving 10 to someone who it's like not going to have such an impact. So lots going on around that. CCDMS is the call center data management services. So we have an RFP out. So that's currently being provided by SMUD. Because of changes in the marketplace, we felt it was our responsibility to go out and do a competitive RFP to get more information about cost and various service levels. So we're running that currently. I believe they're due in the responses are due in April, and it's something that we would intend to bring back to the board for approval in July. Compliance mailers that I mentioned before, the joint rate mailer, power content. We have our Dublin opt-up coming in October. And then customer engagement, we are actually launching a couple new projects with some outside resources to really ramp up our efforts. You know, we have, with the exception of Newark, Pleasanton, and Tracy being new, we have been serving a lot of our customers for at least 2 years. And in that time, it's really been about retaining them. Okay, build brand and retain them. Just don't have people opt out. And now with our programs, we're saying, we want you to do something, customer, because we need to address climate change. And so it's a very different marketing tactic. It's not just like compliance and retention, it's active customer engagement. And so we're looking to run a couple projects to really up our game around the customer engagement. And so more to come on that, probably in our July meeting. And all right, I am done. So now we can take questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Annie, for this this presentation. Okay, I believe Council Member Kick was first. So let's take her question first.
Yeah, so I just have some questions about our organic versus paid reach. And I know you're gonna give us more information when you come back for the board retreat. So, you know, our organic reach is pretty low, and that's free. So if we can work on upping that, there's a couple things I think could really help, like that we can make immediate changes like today. So one of the things is on our Instagram, for example, our name is EBCE. As a regular everyday person, I searched East Bay Community Energy, which means I couldn't find us on Instagram. But I then searched EBCE because I know that's what we call ourselves, but somebody else might be searching and being like, oh, they don't have an account, right? And especially with people in millennial generations and younger, we're looking to Instagram to kind of be the website, even though it's not the website. So using highlights to be like, how to read your bill. You have the information already on the website, even if it's just sharing screenshots. Another thing is that I have noticed, because I engage with y'all's posts, is that there's often links in the text on Instagram. You can't click those. And so if you just do get a program like Linktree or something, then you can just say, hey, the link is in the bio, and there's a one click. Like I can't click on the Forbes article about Jessica Matthews because Instagram doesn't allow it, right? So then I would just be like, forget it, I'm not gonna read it. Because the more people have to work, the less likely they are to engage. So as we're starting to move into this, asking customers to actively engage and make choices, just a couple quick changes here and there, I think could really increase our organic reach. And then I was just wondering, you know, what this looks like. This is my favorite part of this. I really am into digital marketing. So, you know, what kind of role do we have, like a policy that outlines our best practices for all of our social pages? Is it kind of a long-term strategic communication strategy that I can learn more about? Like, where can I get more information without bombarding you right here?
I'm going to pause and see if Dan Lieberman wants to step in and respond to that. I will say we do have, it's old now, a social media policy, but it was more in like, how do we interact with public commenters? We have some internal docs that I'm happy to share with you about our strategy, about tone, about sort of, yeah, how we're approaching social media, but nothing else that I can think of that's public. But I'll turn it over to Dan, who is our Director of Marketing.
Sure. Hi, thanks. First, I'll say we are now East Bay Community Energy. on Instagram. I just made that change. So we're responsive. I could not add EBCE also into our name because that exceeded the character limit.
You did it. Well, powered by EBCE is also searchable. So
Yeah.
like those are the two searchable things. So look at that. Fast and
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the input. And yeah, it's been a challenge dealing with links. Sorry, my phone volume's really loud.
Sorry, I did not prep Dan to let him know that I was going to ask him to come on camera.
Sorry about
and
that.
answer
I kept
questions.
getting an echo on my phone. So yeah, providing links in Instagram's been a challenge. Instagram is a difficult platform for us because it is so visually oriented, and we're trying to get across often very complicated information, like the type of information we've discussed on this call. You know, I noted Linktree, and we can see if maybe we can give that a go and improve the flow. Annie and I are also working on some new tools, as she mentioned. We have a Hootsuite paid account, and starting to use things like UTM parameters in our links and that sort of thing, so we can have better tracking. And so having links that work in Instagram will be important, although it makes it look really ugly in Instagram when you add all those codes on. So we need to find a nice balance here. And then, yeah, responding to posts. I do most of that myself. If there's any profanity, I immediately delete it. I do that fairly often. And then responses, my general approach is only to correct things that are factually incorrect. So if someone says we're a scam, that's probably the most common thing. I leave that alone because people are entitled to have their own opinion. But if someone says your rates are high, or my bill went up because of EBCE, or, you know, my experience was I joined EBCE and then it added $20 to my bill, then I'll chime in because it's factually not correct. And then that's pretty much the way I look at things. I just am I'm chiming in for fact checking, and then just for a little bit of personality. You know, if someone says something friendly, I'll put a smiley face or like it or retweet it or whatever. And then we also have the policies that Annie referenced that allow me to delete a comment, for example, if it has profanity, because we have that as a policy.
awesome. Yeah, I'm just highly interested in how you can use organic reach to really encourage customer engagement. So offline, if you want to chat, I'm interested.
I am totally open. I love all the input I can get. And, you know, we're constantly posting boosted posts. We're running ads. We're doing things that are, you know, every day are beyond our organic posts. And then we do organic posts on most days. So sort of growing our organic followers, but slowly.
And I will say this, we may not have a huge following, but I think oftentimes we're asked, well, you know, how do we distinguish ourselves from PG&E? Like PG&E is no social, like they don't really engage with customers at all. And so I think simply in our being on there and posting content and meeting a lot of people where they are, and certainly not everyone's there, but there's a lot of people there. And so I think that's kind of a clear way, you know, a very clear distinction between a local, accessible community choice program and a large investor-owned utility.
Yeah, and before I just want to make clear, y'all are doing a really great job with social compared to any of the other committees that I participate in. That's why I'm excited, because you will respond and do cool stuff. So it's good.
Okay, is that it, Councilmember Kick? Okay, okay. Next, I want to go to Councilmember Hernandez. You have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say, Annie, great job. I'm so glad that you brought all this information, since we have some new board directors, and you answered some of the questions with, you know, Director Kick. So thank you. But I also wanted to add, since Dublin is one of the 100% renewable, one of like one or two cities have done it, I would really like an outreach program. I think that'd be great for our residents to understand what's actually going to be the process and so on. But a lot of information, and I know you didn't present all of it because we've done some really great things on reaching out to nonprofit organizations and teaming up with nonprofit organizations as well throughout the entire Alameda County. So there's a lot more information, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next would be Councilmember Harrison, who our very capable vice chair who filled in when I was running a little late today. Thank you so much.
You're
Go ahead with your
welcome.
question.
You're welcome. And again, I just seconding everyone's thanks, Annie. This is so helpful. Couple of things. I don't know what organic means in the context of social media. So let's try to recognize that not everybody uses Instagram or those things. And I guess my constituents are constantly saying to me, look, PG&E is cheaper. We can prove PG&E is cheaper. And I don't know what kind of materials we have that can combat that, but I need something. I need something from you that will allow me to explain why that is a lie, because this is the constant mantra all the time in Berkeley. Also, you say that people can change their, yeah, go ahead, Annie.
I was just going to respond, but I can wait.
No, go ahead, please, that's fine.
So organic just means you post it and you don't pay to have it pushed out.
Okay.
So
okay.
Organic versus paid. And then the next question. So there is a very, not the most customer-friendly document, but it is co-branded and co-developed between EBCE and PG&E, which I think does give it lends some additional credibility because it's a joint document. And it's called the Joint Rate Comparison. And we host it on our site, but it's also on PG&E's site. Again, sort of like, look, even they say so. And the Joint Rate Comparison shows for like example customers in different rate classes, our rates versus PG&E's rates. And so it's a PG&E branded document that says EBCE is a little bit cheaper on Bright Choice.
Okay.
For Brilliant 100, it's the same price. And then for Renewable 100, it's a small premium.
Okay. And that's, is that the document you refer to as going out in the fall every year, the comparison? You mentioned there are two. There's the one that's the whatever we call that, that shows where our energy comes from in the spring. And then in the fall, you send out something with this comparison, right?
Other way around. So the July is the joint rate mailer and October is the power content label.
Okay, great. So this comes out of the July mailer, basically. It uses that same data. Okay, that's great. If someone...
it is the same. It's a more concise version of the same data.
Okay, that's great. The two other quick questions. When you mentioned on the time of use, which everyone is being moved to, and then you said they have options, including changing their rate. Can you say more about that? What do you mean? They can go off time of use, or they can go to, looking at, do they have solar, or, I'm confused about what their options are.
So anyone who has gotten solar since, I don't know, when did NEM 2.0 start, Dan? I don't remember. Last 10 years?
2016.
2016. Okay. Anyone who has gotten solar since 2016 is already on time of use. Don't worry about it. If you got solar before then, it's possible you're still on a tiered rate.
Okay.
And if you created your account before October 2020, I think was the date, and you've never touched it again, then you're on a E1 tiered rate. So those are the people that are part of this default transition. And if you are part of the transition, you should have received a notice not in February, now that we're in April, so it's not last month, February. You should have received a printed letter, and it was co-branded PG&E and EBCE. And at the bottom, there should have been a nice chart that showed what you would pay on an annual basis for, I think they do E1, you're tiered, time of use C, which is the 4 to 9 p.m. peak, and then time of use D, I think was the third one that they would show, which is 5 to 8 p.m. peak. but it's a little bit more expensive than the time of use C. And so it would show you how much you would pay on those 3 different rates. And for most people, that time of use C was going to be cheapest.
Right.
But as
okay.
part of this transition, there was a business reply card as well as web ability and phone ability to say, you know what, I decline to transition. I want to stay on E1, or, okay, I want to move to time of use, but I want to move to this other time of use.
Okay.
So if you do nothing, you'll move to time of use C, which is 4 to 9 p.m. peak.
Okay.
But you could say, I just want to stay on E1, or I want to select a different time of use rate.
Okay, but let me say they missed that, you know, because as you say, nobody reads this stuff. So they missed that and they wake up 3 months later and go, wait a second, what's going on? What are their options?
So their options at that point are to stick with the time of use C. That's actually what I would probably recommend.
Okay.
Because for EBCE to provide you bill protection, you have to stay on that rate for 12 months.
Okay.
With some edge cases there.
Annie, this is Jaime. We're up to 2 o'clock, and we still have a member of the public that would like to speak.
Okay.
So I'm sorry if you could you please follow up with an email to Councilmember Harrison if there's anything else you'd like to add? Okay.
Yeah, and I have one other question.
Absolutely.
That is generally the outreach last year when we ran our campaign to increase our utility tax in Berkeley, which got very close but didn't pass. We also handed out your really excellent materials explaining your programs to everyone and how people can enroll in CARE and FERA. So the other thing I'm just looking for generally is help from you in doing that, because we still feel there's not a sufficient uptake in those programs for people that are qualified. So you can write to me later, but I think these are important pieces for our residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for everybody for your questions. Okay, Adrian, can we move Seda Dermaz Dogan to presenter? And we're going to limit this to 2 minutes. It's almost 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Jada again with Local Clean Energy Alliance. Thanks to the marketing team for all this work. I have a comment about EBC's website. My colleague Jessica Tovar mentioned this several times, and we heard similar requests from several board members as well. We would like EBC to create a page listing all the debt relief programs available to ratepayers in the EBC territory and add a link to that page on the homepage of the EBC website. Although I'm familiar with EBC's website, it really took me a while to find where that information is located. I think there should be a link on the homepage that explicitly targets people who are there to look for help. Also, Audrey Ichinose had to leave, but she asked me to ask you this question. Is there any progress in getting data from PG&E about CARE and FERA customers who are eligible for CPUC's AMP program? Thank you.
Okay, would anybody want to answer her question real quickly?
So the question, we know which customers are on the CARE program, as well as FERA, so we know who is eligible for AMP. We have chosen not to do any robust outreach at this time because the application process is very manual, and PG&E actually requested that we do not do a push because they didn't want to be inundated. But they now have several weeks under their belt, and I anticipate in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to come out with an outreach campaign.
Okay, thank you, Annie. Now that we're done with that, let's move over to, do we have any committee member announcements? Okay, do we have any staff announcements or requests?
I just want to remind everybody that I need to reach out to each of you to get your recurring monthly meeting calendar. So hopefully within the next 24 hours or so, or next couple days, we can discuss your schedules. Thank you.
Yes, that is on my list. I just got back from vacation. I'm so backed up right now, but I will get to it, Adrian. Thank you, everybody. If there's nothing else, I'd like to say have a great day, and we're adjourned.